Hello students, welcome to the answer writing program. So today we will be discussing 3 questions from this topic from GS to international relations, and the topic is international or intergovernmental organizations and global issues. Let's take an overview of all the 3 questions. So the first question is related to millets and FAO. It's a specialized agency of UN. The second question is related to significance of WHO. The third question is related to the protectionist tendencies and how they create the challenges with respect to WTO, World Trade Organization. So let's start with the very first question. As the world celebrated the International Year of Millets 2023, India, a historically custodian of these forgotten grains, found itself at the crossroad. Discuss the potentials and the challenges. So this would be the first demand. We need to write down the potential as well as the challenges with respect to the millets, and suggest concrete policy measures to unlock their full potential for the nation's future. The second demand of the question is we need to write down the policy measures to unlock its full potential for the nation's future, food security, environmental sustainability, as well as to ensure the farmers' income. So this question, because 2023 year was declared as International Year of Millet by FAO, it's a specialized agency of UN at the behest of Government of India. So this holds very important as far as UPSC prelims as well as mains are concerned. In prelims, you need to make sure that you know what are millets, what are the climatic conditions, what are the soil structure, in what type of soils they are produced effectively and optimally, and what are the major regions or the areas or the states in India where the production is maximum, and all over the global contribution or the global distribution at the world level. You should also know about all these facts for the prelims as well. And also you must know that India is the largest producer of millets and the second largest exporter of millets. So let's start with this particular question. The introduction, you can introduce with respect to Food and Agriculture Organization. It's a specialized agency of UN and at the behest of Government of India, this is declared 2023 as International Year of Millets. And this declaration as the whole year globally for millets, it highlights the importance of millets, because we know that the climate change is a reality. So how millets can withstand this climate change with respect to the farmers, with respect to the consumers, with respect to the environmental sustainability. So it holds a significant potential to be like consistent production, stable income generation with respect to the farmers, health security, food security, nutrition security with respect to the consumer, and because it's a climate resilient, drought resilient crop, so it also holds responsibility and the sustainability with respect to the environment as well. So let's start with the body. In body, we need to write down about the potentials of millets in India. So there are multiple ways. You can just write the different points that yes, these are drought resistant. With respect to other aspects also you can write. Majorly we can divide into the 3 particular dimensions, like how these millets can hold significance or the potential with respect to the farmers, with respect to the environment, and with respect to the consumer. With respect to farmer, because these millets are drought tolerant. They can be grown in the drier areas, arid areas, semi-arid arid areas. So they do not require much water. So it holds potential for the agricultural resilience as well. So when the agriculture is resilient, they can withstand the extreme of the climates. It means they can generate incomes in the extreme situations also. So it holds a very good potential for the farmers. Next is about they require very low initial capital. They have the short growing season, so the farmers can grow multiple times to increase their revenue. Next is about export opportunities. value addition, we can do food processing. We can make the processed food, like with respect to jowar, bajra and ragi. We can make ready-made like MTR, dosa, ragi dosa batter is there in the market. So via value chain, we can improve the farmer's income with respect to millets. Also, it is the animal fodder as well as for the human consumption. So it's a by usage product for the farmers as well. Next is about environmental. As we know that they are the climate resilient crops, so they are drought resistant. So they are good for environment as well. They do not release much of the emissions. They have the low carbon footprints. So it supports the sustainable agriculture also. With respect to consumer, they provide the nutritional security. They are very rich in fiber, iron, calcium and essential nutrients. They have the antioxidant properties as well. They have the low glycemic index. It means they are well suitable for the diabetic patients as well. So with respect to consumer, this holds so much potential. Moving on to the second part of the question is, we need to write down the challenges associated with the millets. With respect to challenges, again, how we can divide? With respect to the production, after production or processing, then comes to the marketing, then comes to the consumption, and overall at every step, what are the governmental policies? Or you can also merge these points. So with respect to the production, what are the challenges that this millets as a domain is facing? Reducing the area under cultivation, because the governmental policies are like this. They have the skewed policies. So they are diverging more and more land for wheat and rice cultivation, because to secure the food security also. So because of the green revolution, we have also diverged our land more and more towards the rice and wheat cultivation only. So this has reduced the land under the cultivation of millets. Next is about low yields, because the average yield are lower as compared to rice and wheat. So this is the challenge. Next is about, because they have to face, millets have to face the challenges or the competition from the traditional cereals like rice and wheat. Next is about processing or marketing or the post harvest. Again, there are very limited facilities for the processing units or processing of the millets. So this hinders the value addition. Next is about lack of marketing avenues. With respect to consumption, what are the challenges? Consumption. With respect to consumer. With respect to consumer, there is a very low demand with respect to millets. Why low demand? Because there is very less awareness about the health benefits that millet hold. Next is about price barrier. Costs are higher than rice and wheat in the market. This impacts affordability. Because the land under the cultivation is less, so it is not economy on scale. So if we increase the lands under the cultivation of millets, and it will be of economy of scale production, might be the cost of production will also reduce. Next is about limited availability in the market. Because there is less demand, again the market supplies less. Misperceived taste. People have the misconception or the misperception that this millets do not have the good taste. So this is a perception generated in the market. Next is about the governmental policies. What are the challenges with respect to the governmental policies? So there is a MSP disparity. Only MSP is there for the few millets like jowar, bajra and ragi, and that too the procurement is very limited. Next is about inadequate governmental support. So again, the procurement or the less offtake for the PDS as well as integrated child development system. Next is about research funding. With respect to the government side, they do not spend or invest in the research and development for the high yield varieties of the millets also. So these are the challenges with respect to millets. Moving on to the third part, like the suggestions or the policy measures to unlock the potential. So with respect to production, processing or the marketing, like the post harvest we can say. So with respect to this, what we need to do, we need to focus on 3 P's: production, processing and procurement. With respect to production, again we'll see here, with respect to post harvest means we need to increase the processing infrastructure, we need to increase the marketing avenues also. So we need to increase investment in infrastructure so as to develop the processing facilities. We need to invest on the branding and marketing of these millets. We need to position the millets as premium and healthy choice so that consumers' demand will increase. Next is about governmental policies. We need to focus on R&D so as to develop the high yield varieties of millets. You can also quote some examples like MSSRF, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation have initiated millets research and development work for Eastern Ghats. Also, with respect to governmental policies, we need to increase MSP at least at par with rice and wheat for the millets. So, with respect to production, processing and procurement, what we can do? We can specially empower women millet producer by skilling them, by capacity building. You can also quote example over here like AIMS, All India Millet Sister Network. Next is about marketing coupled with storage. Like these marketing avenues, we need to enhance these so as to help farmers realize the right prices for their millets. With respect to consumptions, what can be the policy measures? Because there is less awareness, there is less demand, there are the less misconceived or the misperceptions are there in the market. So we need to remove them. How we can do that? We need to focus on 3 A's. We need to make them available. We need to make millets accessible to the people and affordable. To ensure the increased demand and the adoption of the millet products, we need to invest in the awareness and the education campaigns for the health benefits of the millets, regarding the health benefits. Next is about we can organize the sessions to disseminate information on the health benefits, especially for the lactating mothers and the pregnant women. Next is about we can also incorporate millets in the mainstream, like the midday meal scheme, government offices, in the pantries, in the kitchens, in the whole food system. We can introduce, at least start with the governmental offices. Also, we can integrate it with the ICDS. We can recommend diets to fight lifestyle disease, like as we have discussed with respect to diabetes. We need to change the perception of the people that millets is for the underprivileged and they do not have the good taste. So we need to change this perception as well. Moving on to the conclusion, as we have already discussed many aspects in the question or in the main body part itself. So towards the conclusion, we can write some governmental initiatives with respect to millets in just 1 or 2 liner, or you can write some summary as well. So, with respect to governmental initiatives, government has declared them as Shri Ann, so as to ensure the importance or the potential these millets hold. Next is about Indian Institute of the Millet Research in Hyderabad will be transformed into the Center of Excellence. Again, you can also write about one district, one product, and how this will boost the millet production and the consumption, and the tagging of the millets with respect to the importance of that particular district. Also, you can write about the Agriculture Investment Fund that is pushing the investments to support the millets entrepreneurs. So, you can also write that while the government has made several admirable efforts to encourage millet cultivation, more efforts are required to increase the cultivation, production, processing, consumption, and need to enhance the governmental policies as far as millets are concerned. So this way you can write your first answer. Coming up to the model answer, starting with some introduction, potential, then coming to challenges, policy measures, finally conclusion. Moving on to the next question. Discuss the significance of WHO, World Health Organization. So this is the demand 1. We need to write down the significance in addressing contemporary health challenges and promoting international cooperation. Also analyze the key challenges. So this is the demand 2. We need to write about the challenges faced by WHO. So in the introduction, you can write about the recent context, related to COVID also you can write, or you can write some background with respect to WHO. That this is the specialized agency of UN, as it was FAO also in the last question we have seen. So WHO is also the specialized agency of UN that take care of the international or globally public health, that have the responsibility to regulate the facilities, to control the facilities, to set norms, standard, invest in R&D with respect to the public health. It was founded in Geneva, Switzerland. So in introduction, you can write about this. Coming to the first part of the question, significance of WHO. So WHO, World Health Organization, it means it is a health organization at the world level. And at the world level, what it can do? It has a mandate to take care of public health, to combat the disease prevalent, to check the health trends or the health situations, to deal with the emergencies, to come up with the R&D, to take part in the initiatives or to jointly work whenever there is a need. So these are some mandates. You can also write about that how WHO, like UN has the very fundamental SDG goal is about universal health coverage. And this World Health Organization has the major task to fulfill this universal health coverage. Now, what is universal health coverage? It means the health should be accessible universally, means the health is the fundamental right, or health is a human right, without which there is no security, there is no peace, there is no sustainability at the individual level, at the community level, as well as the global level. So what is universal health care? It means availability should be there, accessibility should be there, affordability should be there. So accessibility means what? Accessibility to the healthcare services. Availability means the number of healthcare workers should be there. So that is how we can avail the healthcare services. Affordability means there should be the healthcare facilities, medical aid, medical advancements that should be affordable. It means they should be under the reach of the common people. And also there should be the proper infrastructure, health infrastructure system should be there at the global level also. As we have seen with respect to the major air pollutants, water pollutants, that WHO has set the norms that air pollutant or the like AQI should be in this particular limit, uranium in the water can be maximum this particular limit. So it sets the standards, it sets the norm for the global world, and also it monitors its implementation, that whether they are being followed or they are being implemented or not. So they have the regional offices, they have the international collaborations with the donors, with the multiple stakeholders. So this is the significance of WHO at the broad level we have already discussed. So coming up with the major demand, starting with the very first point, that health systems strengthening. So WHO has the responsibility to make the health system, healthcare services robust. It needs to strengthen so that are available, accessible to the public, the quality healthcare. Next is about WHO has the responsibility for the disease surveillance and response. It monitors the global health trends, global health situations. It generates the early warnings, like in the cases of pandemics, like in the recently we have seen in the case of COVID-19. Next is about it sets the standards and the norms, like it has come up with the framework convention on the tobacco control. It also ensures, or it also come up with the essential drugs list. Next is about WHO invests in R&D, research and innovation they do, so as to tackle the emerging health challenges and the equitable distribution of the medical services. Next is about it also contributes to the country specific issues like eradicating smallpox, they work jointly with respect to the nations or with respect to the countries in eradicating, like if any country has some major issues, so they jointly work for that to eradicate. You also should know some major initiatives with respect to WHO, like global malaria eradication program was there, smallpox eradication. They have discovered HIV virus, due to which the AIDS, it causes AIDS. Then polio eradication initiatives. Also, like with respect to influenza A, with respect to African Ebola, and with respect to coronavirus, they declare as PHEIC, Public Health Emergency of International Concerns. So that is how they control, they try to regulate, they try to coordinate with the different countries when any emergency situations is there. Coming up to the challenges with respect to WHO. So WHO, there are whatever the UN members are, like 195, 198 members. So whatever they are also the members of WHO also. So WHO works on the funding basis. Like if I am a donor to WHO, so I'll say that whatever funding I am giving to you, this should go towards this particular initiative or this particular healthcare services. Like if I'm a donor, I'm USA and I'm giving to WHO 100 rupees. So I'll say that 70 rupees out of this will go to eradicate smallpox in African nations. So these are the tied fundings. So WHO works on the basis of funding, and these funding, approximately like 80% of the funding are donor chosen programs. So they cannot, WHO cannot use its own mandate, use its own authority to divert these funds to eradicate something else, to increase the healthcare services in some other program. So these are the tied funds. So that is why it results into the insufficient funding during the crisis. As WHO is dependent on the voluntary contributions, so it puts pressure to align its goals or its visions along with the donor's mission. They cannot work independently, WHO. Next is about bureaucratic hurdles. They are very resistant to change. They cannot come up or adapt to the emerging crisis. Political influence, if any political issues are there at the global scale, this is very visible in the WHO meetings as well, because this works on the consensus basis. Again, they major tensions whatever between the different members, so this impacts the global responses also. Next is about response time. WHO has been criticized to respond on time in the emergency situations. Again, coordination challenges, because the different countries have the different priorities, they have the different healthcare systems. So again, they have the issues in the meetings of WHO to come up with one solution, mutually agreeable solutions. Next is about WHO. One challenge with respect to WHO is that they are not very adaptable to the new or the complex types of the disease, the global world, what is it is facing right now. Finally, coming to the conclusion, we can write the summary in the conclusion that WHO is vital for the global health challenges. We need to promote cooperation. We need to set the standards. We must address the criticism and overcome the challenges. So we need to fulfill the mission that is key for the effective global health outcomes. So this way you can write your second answer. Moving on to the model answer, starting with the introduction, then significance of WHO, then key challenges, finally some conclusion. Moving on to the next question. The rise of protectionist tendencies in the recent year poses a significant challenge to WTO. Discuss. So WTO is World Trade Organization. So it was established in 1995 under the Marrakesh Treaty in 1994 with the aim of promoting open, free and fair trade amongst its member countries. But the question is related to protectionism. And what protectionism is to safeguard on domestic industries, so as to put the tariff barriers, the trade barriers, so it restricts or it hampers the free trade. So this is the question. So in introduction, you can write about the definition, what we have already discussed, and also the importance of WTO. Moving on to the body part. See, this is not the direct demand of the question. Why I have added this here, so as to make clear your concepts, because the question is about the protectionist tendencies and how it poses a significant challenges to WTO. And what WTO does? It ensures the free, open and fair trade. It means how protectionist tendencies hampers this trade. I have added over here the positive impacts, the negative impacts, but we need to directly write about how it hampers WHO functioning. So this is not the core demand, but let's discuss it over here. So we can write about impact of the protectionism on international trade. You can use these points in the introduction with respect to the conclusion, and in the various body parts also you can use this as a fodder. So what are the positive impacts? Like protectionism, it protects the domestic industries. It allows the time for the name or the for the very like initial stages companies to grow, and so as to prevent themselves from the competition or the global competition. Next is about saving jobs. It preserves the employment in the vulnerable industries. Next is about the national security concerns. It safeguards the critical industries and technologies from being coming into the global competition. Next is about the negative impacts on free trade, open trade. So it reduces the trade volume. If this is country A and if this is country B, if country B is sending something to country A, it means country A is importing from this. It means, and they are putting the trade barriers, like they are putting the qualitative and quantitative barriers, tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers. So how it will hamper? First, the cost of the goods and the services which is coming up into this particular country will increase. It will hamper the consumer here. It will hamper this particular country also, because the prices are increasing. It means the competition is reducing now. They cannot send more and more products over here. They are protecting their own companies. But it hampers the consumers, because now they have to pay the higher prices. First thing. Second thing, they will also retaliate. B country will also retaliate that if my products are being impacted with the tariffs and the non-tariffs barrier, so whatever country A will export to my country, whatever B country has to import, it will again increase the tariffs and the non-tariff barrier. It means it will result into the trade war. It can result into the decreased trade volume. It can hamper the customers, people or consumer, you can say. So these protectionist policies are not good for the global trade, for the free trade, and also in this way they hampers the economic growth. So next is about higher prices for the consumer. This we have already seen. Disrupted supply chain, because if they engage in the trade war, so this disrupts the supply chain. Again, job losses. Whatever the people are engaged in the export oriented companies, so they will lose their job. Increased tensions, trade war is there. Also the global tensions will enhance. Coming on to the main body part, challenges to the WTO by these protectionist policies. So the very first thing is about the enforcement complexity. WTO faces issues in the enforcement of the laws, like how whatever the protectionist disruptions or the protectionist measures any country takes, it does not take directly. It seeks some loopholes out of the WTO policies. Like WTO policy is there that you can put the trade or the tariff or the non-tariff barrier when the security concerns are there. So what USA will do? USA will put the tariff and the non-tariff barrier from the on the imports of the goods from China in the name of the security concerns. So WTO cannot do anything over here. But this is a protectionist policy. In the name of the security or the national security concerns, USA just cannot put tariff barrier or the non-tariff barrier, because this hampers the free trade. and WTO cannot do anything. So this increases the complexities with respect to the enforcement of the WTO rules. Like in the case of USA, this have put the tariffs on the steel and aluminium from China, citing national security concerns. So next is about stalemated Doha round. Doha round was there to enhance the volume of the free trade, of the open trade, but there is no progress since 2008. It undermines the authority, the legitimacy of the WTO, because it is not doing anything with respect to the Doha round. So it weakens the WTO authority to address the modern trade issues. Next is about rise of the regional trade agreements. Because the WTO sets the rules, the regulations, the facilities for the global trade. But these regional trade agreements, what they are doing, they are bypassing the WTO rules. Like if they give some preferential treatment so that they can disallow the non-members. So it hampers the free trade, it hampers the open and the fair trade deals. So RTAs bypass the WTO rules, and it also fragments the global trade. Example, TPP, RCEP, etc. Next is about consensus of the new issues. Again, WTO comes up with the mandate that they have to be mutually agreeable solution. So any decision is taken on the consensus basis, but again there are the differences in the member countries due to their preferences, due to their priorities, due to their internal domestic system, due to their protectionist policies. So they are not coming up on any of the mutually agreeable solution, so that WTO will adapt itself to the new or the new emerging issues with respect to the trades. So it hinders the WTO's ability to adapt to the new challenges. Next is about weakening public support, because the people in their countries, and if the country is promoting protectionist policies in the name of saving jobs for their people, so that people, the public, will also not support WTO. They'll support their countries only. So growing populism, job loss fears, it fuels skepticism towards the free trade. So this poses some challenges on the WTO rules, as seen in the policy of America First in USA and in the Trump administration also. Next is about decision making complexity. Again, it's there with respect to the consensus building we have discussed over here. Then transparency concerns. Again, WTO is allegedly accused of non-transparency issues, that they work on some dominated countries only. So there are transparency issues in WTO negotiations, dispute resolution. It raises accusation with respect to the fairness and the non-biasness. It hurts the WTO's credibility. Finally, coming on to the conclusion. In conclusion, you can write about summary, that protectionism threatens WTO and global trade. So we need to come up with the solution, that we need to revamp the policies, the rules, the mutually agreeable solution. So it should be the consensus based, and we need to modernize the rules. We need to revamp dispute settlement, and we need to ensure the transparency, accountability should be there towards their members. For that, we need the collaboration amongst the different members of WTO for the prosperous global economy. So this was the conclusion for the third question. Let's see the model answer, starting with the definition of the protectionism, some additional information, how protectionism impacts the trade in a positive manner, in the negative manner, what are the challenges, and what are the conclusions you can write. So this was it from my side for today. Thank you and have a nice day, and keep writing.